can draw this in Procreate. During this fun and easy Procreate tutorial, I will guide you through every step of creating this stunning landscape. It's a bit of a longer project, but that's because I don't want to skip anything or speed up any part of the process. But still, if things are going too fast for you, don't forget that there is a pause and rewind button. And just make sure to take your time. I'm sure that by the end of this tutorial, you will have a result that you will be proud of, so don't forget to share it. I always love seeing your results. I browse through the images in which I am tagged on Instagram every single day, so I will definitely see your work. And for this tutorial, we are working on a canvas that is 3000 by 2000 pixels. I have linked a free color palette in the description, and we will be using free Procreate brushes, the ones that are already in the app, and some brushes that are part of my treasure chest brush pack, which you can find by going to freefromflow.com. But now, if you're ready, let's get started. Let's start off by creating a gradient for our sky. First, let's drop in the first color in the first row. Just drop it in like this. And then we are going to grab the soft brush, which you can find under airbrushing. And then let's first grab the second color in the first row. Let's set the opacity to 80%. And the size is at 15. Let's zoom out just a little bit. And let's go over our sky in a diagonal fashion like this. And here, that's the area where the desert will be, of course. So you don't have to go over there. It's just about this area where our sky will be. So make multiple slightly diagonal strokes. And then switch to the third color in the first row. And we'll go a little bit lower and add some of this yellow. Just make sure that you still have an area with that like more orangey color. So we'll go for something like this. The lower area isn't important. Then let's go to the magic wand and to Gaussian blur. Then we'll slide to the right slightly to soften this transition. Let's go for 10%. And then I'd like to tap the magic wand again and another time, and then go to motion blur. And then we'll slightly drag our pen in a diagonal way to the upper right to, again, blend it a bit, but make it a bit like, well, wispy. We'll go for something like this. I'm at 38%, and then tap the magic wand again. Then let's grab another brush. We'll go to the inking brushes and use the studio pen. And for our color, we'll go to the first color in the second row. And we'll also make another layer on top of this one. So we'll tap the plus. And for this brush, the opacity should be at 100% and the size at, let's say, 10%. And then we'll start a bit below the halfway point of our canvas, and then we'll make a wobbly line from left to right. Just wiggle your pen a bit as you move to the right. And you don't have to copy my line exactly, of course. All the way to the right, and then drag in the color underneath. Now, I don't want this to look too crisp, so let's make it a little bit blurry. Let's go to the magic wand and to Gaussian blur. And I will slide to the right to, let's say, 2%, and then tap the magic wand again. I feel like I might be a little bit too high up, so we can just go to the little arrow here, the move and transform tool, and make sure that snapping is turned on. And then we can move this downward just a little bit to about here, and then tap the arrow again. So you can see that the sky area is a bit more than half of your canvas. Next, we'll make some sand dunes. Let's do that on a new layer. We'll tap the plus, and then we'll grab this second color in the third row. And at first, we'll make our foreground sand area. We'll start a little bit below the bottom, and we'll make a line. We'll go slightly up and to the right and upward a little bit like this. And then drag in the color underneath. Then we'll make another sand dune underneath this. So first tap layer 2, then tap the plus, and then we'll grab this third color in the third row, And we'll start a bit higher, about here. And make a line like this. We'll go down and then all the way to the bottom and then drag in the color. And we'll make another one underneath this. So first tab layer 2, then tab the plus, then grab the 4th color in the 3rd row. And then make sure to start at the bottom or all the way on the left. And then make a line like this. We'll go upward a little bit like this and then drag in the color underneath. Then we'll make one more underneath this. So first tab layer 2 again, then tab the plus and then go back to that 3rd color in the 3rd row. And then again, start all the way on the left, go a little bit higher than this one, and create something like this, and then drag in the color. Next, we are going to create our centerpiece, the main rocks, the most important rocks in our landscape. And we'll use the 4th color in the 2nd row for that. And we'll stick with our studio pen. And of course, we also need a new layer, and it needs to be underneath our sand layers, but on top of this one. So let's tap the plus here. And then let's make sure that we start all the way at the bottom so we can create a closed shape. We'll go here, and then we'll go up and create this big rock shape with these random wibbles and wobbles. We'll go down and back up for a smaller one here. Don't worry too much about the shape. You can always adjust it later. Then back up here. A little bit higher. Then we'll go back down. Then all the way down so we can fill the shape. Now what you can do is just go to the magic wand and to liquefy, set it to push with distortion and momentum set to none. I have pressure to max. And you can play around with the size, and then you can push and pull if you want to adjust your rocks a little bit, play around with what they look like. Maybe we can go a little bit lower for this one. Make sure that they are nicely centered in this composition. I think this looks good. Let's tap the magic wand again to get out of here. Then let's create another rock, or more like almost a mountain range, and we'll do that underneath this layer. So first we'll tap layer 2, then we'll tap the plus, and then for our color we'll grab this first one in the 2nd row. And let's start here at the bottom, then let's go up and make it appear in between these two, then go up here, down a little bit, and then back up. And make a shape like this all the way to the right, and then drag in the color. Then we'll make another one in front of this shape. So we'll go to the layer menu again and tap the plus, and then we'll go to the next color, which is the 3rd one in the 2nd row. And we'll start low again so we can make a closed shape. Make a small one here, maybe one over here, and then back up here. And create another random rocky shape and drag in the color. Then let's make some big shapes here on the left. But for those shapes, again, we need a new layer. Let's tap the plus and let's grab this color over here. That's the 6th color in the 2nd row. And we'll make this one start all the way here at the top. We'll go down, then to the right, and then we'll go down here. Then a little bit to the right, and all the way down, and now we can drag in the color. Now we'll make another shape in front of this one. So we'll tap the plus for a new layer, and we'll grab the darker color. That's this one, that's the 5th color in the 2nd row. And we'll start about here. And then we'll make another rocky shape. We'll go to the right, go a little bit lower, and then right in front of our main rock. But we can't go in front since this layer is behind it. We need to fix that. Let's drag in the color, and let's select both of these rocks and place them on top of our centerpiece. So now we have all of these layers for the sand and for the rocks. This is a nice moment to make a screenshot and check if your shapes are about similar. Like I said, they don't have to be an exact copy, but the arrangement should be something like this. Next, we are going to work on texturing these rocks. And we'll start with our centerpiece. First, I'd like to create some rougher edges. And to do that, we'll go to the artistic brushes. Where are they? Over here. And we'll use the leatherwood brush. And for the color, we'll just pick that color that we already have. The opacity of the brush should be at 100%. And the brush should be very small, maybe 2%. But let's just check that out. Let's go along the edges, especially here where we have those parts sticking out. And just make these horizontal strokes to create some random texture there. Also over here, some points sticking out. Don't worry about the colors of the brush. So over here. And on this rock, just some small parts sticking out. Until you are all the way on the other side, you have a nice outline for this rock, a nice silhouette. Once you have that, you can go to the layer, tap it, and turn on alpha lock. Now our shape, our silhouette is set, and we won't be able to paint outside of the silhouette anymore, and we are ready to add texture. For the texture, I'd like to use another brush under artistic. That's the hearts brush. It'll give a nice texture for our rock. So let's grab a color. Let's use this one over here, 6th color in the 2nd row. The opacity of the brush can be at 100%. Let's set the size to perhaps 4. Let's see. I think that's nice. First, let's make some of these more horizontal strokes. And I'm using very light pressure. This is really just a base for our texture. We'll start with these horizontal strokes. Let's make this part a bit darker. Here we can go vertical. Make a bit of a separation between this rock and this one. Let's make some horizontal strokes on this thinner rock. Also over here, we're making this horizontal line texture. And I'm imagining the light is coming from the left here. So the right sides of these rocks are a bit darker. Make a line over here. Here we'll make some sand. Then over here as well. Some nice horizontal, slightly diagonal lines. Maybe some vertical over here, this area. Some areas with short vertical lines. Over here as well. You can mix things up. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, maybe 3%, and also make some vertical lines here, some vertical cracks. And just refine some of these areas that we have created. Make this a little bit darker. So a combination of horizontal and vertical lines. Let's make these a little bit darker, more prominent. Let's go even smaller with our brush, a small 2% or even 1. Maybe some vertical little dabs. You can see that I'm doing this quite roughly. Just slowly building up the texture. Let's go a bit bigger again, 3%. And let's also grab a lighter color. Let's grab this one, 4th color in the 3rd row. And let's add some lighter parts here on the left. Also here on the underside where there might be some sand. Right up to that rock. Maybe some light here. And what I really like to do is use my color booster brush. It's part of the free treasure chest brush pack. If you don't already have it, go to freefromflow.com to get it. Now let's find that brush. There, the color booster brush. And it's great to, well, the name says it, to boost colors. We can grab a warm color like this 4th color in the 2nd row. And I have the opacity of this brush at 100% and the size at, well, let's set it to 40. And now we can go over this rock and boost the oranges. And here as well, give it some warmth. We can also do that with a more yellowish color, 4th color in the 3rd row. Go over this underside. But it really adds some saturation to it. Now let's continue adding more detail. Let's use the fine liner brush for that. And let's grab a light color. Let's grab this one over here, 10th color in the 2nd row. The opacity of this brush is at 100%. Let's set the size to 10%. And let's add some light cracks here. Very gently. This area of this rock is in the light, so we have some pretty bright highlights here. I also want a little horizontal crack here to break things up and add some interest to it. But with the fine liner brush, you can start adding some finer detail to your rock. So the texture brush, the artistic brush, was like a base for the texture, and you can follow that texture and then start adding more little details. Turn up the contrast a bit. You can also lighten up this area a bit with a more diagonal stroke. And we can also use this brush for some darker areas. Let's grab this color, 1st color in the 3rd row, and we can refine these cracks over here. Make them a bit more, well, a bit darker, a bit more refined. Some vertical lines over here, refine those a bit. Can deepen this shadow a bit. Maybe refine this area. And the area in between these 2 rocks. Yeah, I think we can go for something like this. And then maybe we can lighten up this sand area just slightly. let's grab the soft brush for that. Let's go to recent brushes and grab it from there. And then let's grab this yellow. And we need our brush to be a little bit small, maybe 7%. And let's go over this lower area and brighten that up a little bit. Now that we have done this rock, let's do something similar for the other rocks. Let's start with the one in the background. Let's go to this layer over here. First, we can add a little bit to the edges again with the leatherwood brush. We'll just pick that local color. You can tap and hold your finger in the area. And then let's go over some of these shapes. Add some randomness. Also here at the top. Over here. I think something like this looks good. Since it's more towards the background, I want to blur it just slightly. Let's go to the magic wand, then to Gaussian blur, and let's go for 1%. And then tap the magic wand again. Now for the texture. Let's first turn on Alpha Lock, and then we'll grab the Hearts brush again from the Artistic Brush Pack. And let's first add a little bit of light. Let's grab this color, 4th color in the 2nd row. And let's just go over some of these areas. Add some lighter texture. Maybe with these slightly vertical, slightly diagonal lines. And I'm making these darker gaps in between. A little bit over here. Maybe we can go even lighter. Let's grab this color, 4th color in the 3rd row. It's a little bit yellowish. Let's add some light on these left sides. And we need smaller detail on this on these rocks since they are farther away. You won't be able to see a lot of detail. Then let's go slightly darker, perhaps with this color, 1st color in the 3rd row. And very gently go over these areas. Don't go too dark. We can go a little bit darker here on the underside. Perhaps a bit here. Now to create a bit of a haze there, let's grab the soft brush again. And let's grab a yellowish color, perhaps just this one, 4th color in the 3rd row. Let's set the size to 10%. And let's go over here. And that'll bring the colors together a bit and lessen the detail. We don't want these rocks to be too prominent. I think they look good like this. Let's move on to the ones in front on layer 9. Let's first work on that edge by using the leatherwood brush again. And then let's just grab the local color, go in here and work on the edges just a little bit. Also for this one. It doesn't need much, just a little bit of randomness. There, then let's turn on Alpha Lock by tapping the layer and then tapping Alpha Lock. And then let's grab our Hearts brush again. Then for our color, let's start with this one, 6th color in the 2nd row. And let's add some shadow, especially on the right sides. Let's just make these horizontal short strokes. And let's make some separation here. Create the idea of multiple rocks. Here we can also add these vertical lines. Now let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 2%, for these short horizontal strokes. And here we'll make some vertical. We have this rock and one next to it. And over here, we just want some color variety. So let's grab a lighter color as well. Let's grab this one, 4th color in the 3rd row. And let's add that to the left side. Over here as well. And let's go even lighter by grabbing this color. 10th color in the 2nd row. Let's add some brighter highlights. And you can also switch to that fine liner brush to add some more detail. Let's go and grab a darker color, this 5th color in the 2nd row, and refine this area a bit more. Add some darker cracks. Because this one, it's closer to the viewer than that one, so this one needs just a bit more refinement. Just making horizontal and slightly diagonal lines, very short. I think something like this works. So now let's move on to this rock. We need to go to layer 10. First, we'll work on the edges again by using the leatherwood brush, and we'll grab the local color by tapping and holding. And then again, we'll go along the edges, make some random stuff stick out, make it nice and pointy. Not too much, just in a few areas, maybe a little bit over here. And then we'll turn on alpha lock, so we'll tap the layer, turn on alpha lock, and then we'll grab the hearts brush again. Now first, let's add some lighter color. Let's grab this one, 7th color in the 2nd row, and let's make the brush a bit bigger first. Maybe 6%. Add some lighter texture, maybe some shapes like this, a little bit rounded, curving over that rock, and some more vertical here. Then we can go smaller. Let's go back to 2% and make some more lines, but smaller ones. You're curving around. And here are those vertical long lines. Then I want to go darker. We'll grab this color. That's the 8th color in the 2nd row. Now let's separate these two rocks a bit. Making a line here. So now there's a deep crack in between here. Also add some darker parts here, vertical lines. I think we got some nice texture here. Maybe deepen this a bit. I think that looks nice. We can use a little bit of that color booster brush and add some warmth here. Let's grab this color, 7th color in the 2nd row, and go over this side, adding a little bit of redness, a little bit of warmth. Then let's go to layer 11. First, we'll work on the edges again. So we'll go to the leatherwood brush and we'll grab the local color by tapping and holding. And And then we'll go along the edge again, making that more jagged. And if you find it to be too jagged, you can also use the fine liner brush here to make it more random, less smooth. Just make sure that you don't get any floating little particles, because a rock won't have that. Won't have floating particles. Yeah, I think something like this should work. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's go and turn on alpha lock. And then let's start with the texture again. Let's grab the hearts brush. And then let's grab a dark color. Let's grab this one first. 8 color in the second row. And let's make the brush a bit bigger, 7%. And we'll make some of these horizontal, slightly diagonal lines. Also grab a lighter color. Let's grab this one. 7th color in the second row. Use that over here. And then we'll start going smaller with our brush. Let's go to 2% again. And then we can start adding a little bit more detail, smaller brush strokes. First with this light color, but let's also switch to this very dark color, 9th color in the second row. And let's add some diagonal lines here. Also over here. Maybe some other lines like this, the opposite direction. And let's go back to a lighter color. Maybe we can also use this one, 3rd color in the second row. Let's see if it's not too light. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 1%. Just for some extra lines here. That looks nice. I think you are doing a great job. You've already made it to the halfway point. If you are enjoying this tutorial, and if you either want to support this channel or are eager to follow more Procreate tutorials, then go ahead and check out my Patreon page. You will find more than 150 Procreate drawing and painting tutorials there, and they have a wide variety of subjects, techniques, and difficulty levels, so I'm sure you'll find something that you like. But now let's move on. Next, let's add some shading to the sand, and let's start with the layer in the back. Let's first just blur it slightly. Let's go to the magic wand and to Gaussian blur and set it to 1%. Then go back to the layer, tap it and turn on alpha lock. And then let's grab the soft brush. And for the color, let's first add some bright yellow. Let's grab that 10th color in the second row. And let's add that over here to nicely merge it with this area. We can make the brush a little bit smaller, maybe 5%. To also add some light here at the top. And let's also grab this color, 4th color in the 3rd row. Let's use that for that edge. Maybe some of that color over here. A little bit here. Let's make the brush even smaller, 2%. We can add a little line here. Now let's grab a darker color. We'll grab this one, 2nd color in the 3rd row. Let's make the brush a little bit bigger again. 7%. Let's darken this lower area. We can just paint on this underside. Add a bit of a shadow. And then let's add a brighter light on the edge. We can grab that 10th color again in the second row and make the brush small again, 2%, and add a bit of a brighter edge here. Then let's move on to the next sand layer over here. First, let's blur it a little bit again, just 1% Gaussian blur. Slide to the right like this, then go back to the layer, tap it and turn on alpha lock. And then let's first add some darker color, second color in the third row to make the brush a bit bigger again, 5%, and go over this underside. Then let's grab a lighter color. We'll grab that 10th color in the second row and go over the top. Slight edge over here. We're keeping it really simple, this sand. Then on to the next one over here, layer 4. Let's keep it this crisp. It's closer to the viewer. Let's turn on alpha lock right away. And we need some darker colors here. Let's start with this one. Second color in the third row. And let's make the brush a little bit bigger, 7%. And especially this area is darker. Here the light is hitting that sand probably. Here it's darker, and then let's go even darker than this with the first color in the third row. And add a nice shadow area here. So it'll be something like this. Now let's move on to the sand in the foreground. Here on layer 3, first let's turn on alpha lock. And then let's first grab a lighter color. Let's start with this one. Third color in the third row. Let's make the center area a little bit lighter, where the light is hitting. And the sides will be a little bit darker. Let's grab that dark color, first color in the third row. We'll darken this area. Gently build it up. You can also add a little bit over here. Well, maybe a bit less. Very light pressure. And then let's try to add some slight sand texture. And I want to do that by changing our leatherwood brush. We'll tap it. So we'll go to the menu of the brush. And then let's turn up the spacing. Let's set that to 50%. And you can tap done. And then let's grab, well, let's stick with this dark color. And then we can check it out, how it works. That's a bit too small. Let's make it a bit bigger. Maybe 10%, let's see. That's way too big. So we need something in between, maybe 3. Let's just go over here and add a bit of this texture. And of course this is too much, it's way too prominent, but we are going to paint over to push it back a bit. So then let's grab the soft brush again. And then let's grab a lighter color. Let's grab this one first, 4th color in the third row. And let's go over here and add some light. And we'll also grab the local color, or perhaps this one first, 3rd color in the third row, to gently build this up. We're going to push back the texture a little bit. And then we'll grab the darker color, 2nd color in the third row, and go over again. And let's add some highlights, some lighter areas with this color, 10th color in the 2nd row. And let's make the brush a little bit smaller, like 4% or 3. And let's add some light edge of that sunlight that is hitting that sand. Next, we are going to add some rocks to our scene. Let's do that on a layer on top of these. So we'll tap the plus. Then let's grab our studio pen again. And for the color, let's grab something dark. Let's use this one over here. 9th color in the 2nd row. And let's place one over here, for instance. A nice big rock. Flat on the underside. And perhaps a smaller one next to it. And you can drag in the color to fill these shapes, or you can make the shapes first and then start filling them. So also add one over here. And one here. Perhaps a small one over here, or one that's at least further away. Maybe one here in front of that rocky area. And a small one here. But you really don't have to copy this exactly. When you fill these areas, you can also use continue filling there at the top and then tapping these areas. And then use a little check mark. Now to make these undersides merge a bit more with the sand, you can add a layer mask to this layer. You can tap it and then use mask. And then with a brush, like for instance the fine liner brush, and while you have it set to black, you can go along the underside and make that a bit more rough. So that it's less smooth and it'll match the surroundings a bit better. As if there is some sand on that underside. Just go along the undersides of all of these rocks. Maybe you can make this a bit more crisp. You can also use this layer mask to refine your rocks, of course. Using a layer mask is like erasing, but it's non-destructive. Once you have gone over an area with black and masked it, but you want to have it back, you can just simply switch to white and then paint over it to get it back. Next, let's add some texture to these rocks. We'll go back to the rock layer, make sure to select that and don't stay on the layer mask. Let's tap this and then use alpha lock. And then we'll grab another brush. We'll go to the textures brushes that are in Procreate. Where are they? Textures over here, and we'll use the Kuro Wong brush. And this brush will give a nice rocky texture. You can just grab some lighter colors than the colors that we already have, like this, the 6th color in the 2nd row. You can try that for our rock. Let's see, the opacity is at 100%. Let's set the size to 6. And then we'll go over some of these top areas of these rocks to give them this texture. For some of these, I'd also like to maybe use some bluish color, like this first color in the 1st row that we used for our sky. Let's go over here. That will add some variation. You can also go a little bit lighter. Let's grab this color, 3rd color in the 3rd row. And we can make the brush a bit smaller, 2%. And add some brighter areas. And you can even go and grab the fine liner brush. Let's go to the recent brushes again. Grab the fine liner brush, maybe an even lighter color like the 4th in the 3rd row. And add some of these details. Little lines or cracks on the rock. So you'll end up with something like this. Next, we need some shadow. These rocks are casting a shadow, especially these over here, and they are casting their shadow on this sand layer. We'll tap the plus on that layer, and then we'll set that new layer to clipping mask so that whatever we paint here, it'll only show up on that sand layer. Then we'll tap the N and scroll up to multiply, because that's a great layer blending mode for shadows. And for our brush, we'll go to the soft brush, and for the color, let's try this one. Second color in the third row. Let's see how it works. It's a bit too reddish, so let's just go to this color. First color in the third row. I want the shadow to be nice and dark. The opacity of the brush is still at 80%. Let's set the size to 2. And then let's make these diagonal shadows. Just like this. Maybe we need to make the brush a little bit bigger, actually. Let's go slightly bigger. A small 4%. That way the edges are a little bit softer. We have this one to make that shadow slightly shorter since it's a small rock. And this one over here. You can make the brush a little bit smaller again, small 3%, to refine some of these edges a bit. Yeah, so it'll look something like this. You could also tap and hold the eraser to make it switch to the soft brush, and then make that eraser smaller, like 4%, and then you could adjust some of these areas if it's needed. You can make it really small, like 1%. Then go in between these rocks, because that's where still some light will pass through. And we could also go back to the brush, make it a bit bigger, like 10%, and also add a little bit more shadow over here in that darkest area. All right, now it's time to create our clouds. Let's go to the bottom of our layers, to our sky layer, and then tap the plus for a new layer on top. And then for the color, let's grab this one, fourth color in the first row, and we are going to use that as a base for our clouds. Let's set the size of our soft brush maybe to 4%. Let's see. I think that's nice for now. Opacity is still at 80%. And then let's start here at the top with these wiggly, rounded motions and create a base cloud shape over here. Very, very wobbly, short, rounded motions, just creating a simple base shape. Let's also go over here. And we can make the brush a little bit smaller, 3%. Make some smaller clouds here, all the way to the right. And now let's switch to some warmer colors. Let's start with this one, seventh color in the second row. Add some reddish to these clouds. Also over here. Then let's also go for something more orangey, like the fourth color in the second row. Like over here. Again, short, rounded motions, but also a little bit like longer, wispy clouds. And I think we can go a little bit lighter. Let's grab this color, fourth color in the third row. I use that for some lighter clouds that are lit by our sun that we'll add later. Also over here, we can add a little bit of this to this cloud. you can also turn on alpha lock on this layer and then grab that color booster brush again. Here we have it under our recent brushes. It's part of the treasure chest. And we can grab a reddish color like the third one in the second row and go over this cloud, for instance, to add some warmth. You can also do that here. All right, now let's go and grab another brush, and we can find it under organic. And that's here it is, the cotton brush. And we are going to make it nice and small. Let's go for like 1% or 2 with the opacity at 100. And we are going to grab a light color, this one over here, or maybe let's start with this one, third color in the first row. And let's go along some of these edges, creating that highlight edge. Also with these short little rounded motions. Also over here on the underside that's getting hit by the light. And over here. Here we need a lighter color. Let's first add some of this over here. And let's actually turn off alpha lock. Let's go to the layer, tap it, turn off alpha lock so we can go outside of these shapes and add some more to it here. Some wispy stuff here. And then we can go a little bit lighter. Let's grab that fifth color in the first row and go over here on that underside and over the top. And this area. And I guess we can blur it a little bit. Let's go to the magic wand and to Gaussian blur. Slide to the right. And let's go for 4%. And then let's go back to that menu and let's also use a motion blur. Let's just do that very slightly. Maybe 20% like this. And then we can turn that off and then go back in and then add some more detail. We can add some more wispy clouds here. And we can use our blurry clouds as a base to add more refinement. Over here. Some clouds here, very wispy, thin clouds. A little bit on the underside here. Well, let's switch to that slightly darker color again, third color in the first row, and use that along these edges. And over here. Can gently bring back some detail. I think this looks nice. Let's start adding a sun. For our sun, we need a new layer. Let's tap the plus. And for the color, let's grab this one, fifth color in the first row. And for our brush, we need a nice round brush, the monoline brush under calligraphy. And then let's draw a circle over here. Hold your pen in place, tap one finger on the screen. So you get something like this. Then drag in the color. And then let's go to the magic wand and then to bloom. We'll slide to the right to turn our sun on. Let's play around with the settings so we get a nice glow around our sun. I think something like this will do. The bloom is at 23%, size at 30, and the burn at 37. Then let's tap the magic wand again to get out of here. And then let's make a new layer on top of this one. So let's tap the plus. And for this layer, we'll set the layer blending mode to add, which is great for adding light. For our brush, we need the soft brush again under airbrushing. And I think we can stick with this color. Let's make the brush bigger. Maybe 12%. Let's see. That's nice. Let's lower the opacity a bit to 60%. And let's go over this area gently. And also a little bit here at the top for some extra bright light. Then finally, we can also do this on top of our rock layers. Let's go to this layer over here, layer 11. Let's tap the plus and let's set this layer blending mode to add as well. But this time, let's grab a different color. Let's go for something a bit more subtle, like this fourth color in the third row. Let's make the brush slightly smaller, 9%. And let's go over this rock to add that glow there. Also a little bit over here. And on this rock. Maybe we can go a little bit lighter. Let's also grab this color, 10th color in the second row. And let's go over this area again for an extra bright highlight. Maybe you make the brush a little bit bigger, 17%. And then go over the sun area just to blend it a bit more. I think that looks nice. And there you have your gorgeous desert landscape. You could finish it off with a silhouette. If you have my animal silhouette brush pack, then you could add a camel, for instance. Let's check it out. It's in the animals brush pack. There we have a nice camel. I'm going to add it by using a dark color. 9th color in the second row. And of course it needs its own layer. Let's go to the top. Let's tap the plus. Let's make the brush a bit smaller, 20%, 100% opacity, and drop that in. Now let's make it smaller by going to the Move and Transform tool. I want it to be about this size, maybe a little bit smaller. And then tap the arrow again. Now you could just drop in the silhouette, or you can finish it off by adding some texture and some extra details to the animal. You can do that by turning on Alpha Lock. And then I'd like to go to the artistic brushes again. And then use the hearts brush again. By the way, if you want to turn your leatherwood brush back to normal, you can just slide to the left and then use reset. And then it'll be the regular leatherwood brush again. I'll go to the hearts brush and I'll grab a lighter color like this one, 4th color in the first row. And then you can go over, let's make the brush bigger, 6%. You can go over and add texture in some lighter areas. And it'll add interest to the animal. You don't have to add complete details, but this will give the suggestion. You can go in here, make the brush smaller, like 2%. Make its snout, its muzzle a bit lighter, for instance. You could also add some warmer colors, like this one, 1st color in the 3rd row. Add some dabs of that. And using the fine liner brush from the treasure chest brush pack and a dark color, that silhouette color, 9th color in the 2nd row, you can refine things, maybe add the suggestion of an eye. But it's still a silhouette, so don't worry too much about those details. And then to add a little bit of oomph here, let's grab a light color, this 5th color in the 1st row, and we'll go along the edges and give it a rim light. Because the sun is behind it, and this will nicely make it stand out. Also along the front here. This way you can bring your silhouettes to the next level. And then finally, it needs a drop shadow, of course. You can make it on the layer where we have the rock, the shadows, or you can just make a new one just to make, just to be safe. Use clipping mask for this layer as well and set it to multiply. Then grab the soft brush again under airbrushing. And for the color, we'll grab this one again. First color in the third row. Let's make the brush nice and small, maybe 3%. And again, make a diagonal shadow from these legs. You don't have to give it too much thought. We need a bigger shadow over here for the body. The sun is very low, so its shadow is very stretched. Make the brush even smaller, 1%. And the shadow is crispest closest to its legs. And then it'll get more blurry as we move outward. So as we move outward, we can make the brush a bit bigger again, 3%. Make it blend together a bit. So you'd get something like this. In case you don't already have the animal silhouettes, I will leave a link in the description so you can get it with a special discount. I hope you have enjoyed following along. Don't forget to share your results. And then I'm hoping to see you next time for the next tutorial. Thank you for watching.